This is the rebranding of the logo we did for San Diego Global Knowledge University, an online international university based in San Diego, as the name implies. So here we have the logo before our rebranding, and you'll find that it had its issues, especially when you had to use a smaller dimension. It was really hard to read, and there were a lot of elements that really weren't working together, and some of them weren't even necessary to tell the story of a global institution devoted to uh, pushing the envelope in terms of technology. They did so when they began. They were pioneers in education posted online, but nowadays that is almost a commodity, and the logo needs to step up with the rest of the world. So we found that this lockup of typeface really wasn't as efficient as it could be. There is a lot of white space in between the letters that could be better used. If you think of it as real estate, then those are square pixels that are really put to waste. So the first thing we had to do was make sure that the letters were large enough and not so much that it would be an elongated logo. If you see horizontally, it takes up a lot of space, and that can bring upon some issues when trying to use it on certain applications. So we began by improving the words global and knowledge. We found that there was a lot of different spaces that we could minimize and give it a more cohesive look and feel. We chose a slab typeface that really took care of all those spaces. You see, the G is kind of getting cozy with the L, the O is growing closer to the L as well, but without getting in its way, and uh, it's easy to read. It's bolder typeface, and it really takes less space because it's more even now. We have the same issue here. There's a lot of space in between that we can't really do a lot about through tracking. So we decided to use a different typeface that would already solve those problems for us without having to modify it. The O sits very comfortably next to the N, kind of leaning on it, and below the W is getting almost inside of the personal space of the L. So there's the E, the same goes here. These two curves are basically repelling each other, and there's not a lot that we can do that unless we turn them into lowercase letters, and they fit really well among each other. And then we had San Diego. It was kind of hard to read using such a small font. That really wasn't necessary because the logo is naturally more horizontal, so you can increment the height of it without really doing any damage, and it actually looks much better. It's much easier to read. also in lowercase, so that the S and the D really help you with your reading process. Here is San Diego and global knowledge compared to the previous versions. And all we have left is university. It takes less space, it's easier to read, it's bolder, it is a bit taller, and when we lock it up all together, it looks more cohesive. Here's a comparison on how much space we are saving horizontally. And instead of trying to justify the text, we thought it best to be aligned to the left as a sort of banner than that one would find at a university. So that was one issue, the font, solved. Now, the isotype. This is a globe that really put a lot of effort into telling us how a globe is supposed to look, but that is not really what we want to learn from a logo of university. We don't want to learn how it looks like in real life. All we need is to take a cue from as little as possible elements. The first issue that we found was that it wasn't really a circle. So there's nothing wrong with a globe not being a circle, but if you're going to try to do it, you have to go all the way. Otherwise, it has to be evident that it is not a circle. So it kind of fell in between the two of them for no apparent reason. And then each of the circles representing the latitudes in the globe weren't really geometrically exact. And there's this white space that could really be put to better use, especially when dealing with a minimized version of the icon, such as a favicon or a mobile application, as well as here. Those are pixels that we could be using to our advantage. And that doesn't mean that we have to fill everything with color. White space can and must be used, but to our advantage. And here there is no evident advantage in leaving those spaces white. Then, do we really need the base for the globe? I don't think we do. I think it can be understood without adding all that detail. And then there's this curve that really isn't going the way it's supposed to go. The perspective is also kind of wrong. So we began by simplifying all the elements. There is just no need for all of the three dissecting horizontal lines, the equator and all of the uh, northern and southern latitudes. Uh, we made an abstraction of the globe. It's not geographically correct. Of course, the equator is missing, but that is not the point. You need to figure out by yourself that this is a globe and do that with as little elements as possible. In this case, 7 of them. Here is the geometrical grid that we used. It all adds up. Here it is, along with the typeface. We no longer have the base. We now have a typeface that is easier to read. And we did keep the old color scheme just to make sure that this change was not a complete one and that people would continue to recognize their colors. So here it is, a full San Diego Global Knowledge University. Here it is with just the initials SDGKU, the hashtag with the initials of the university, a hashtag for all other purposes, Global Knowledge U. And here they are all together. The isotype really works well in different applications for different purposes. Now it's easier to read. There is very good use of all the square pixels or square inches if you have it in print. And it really works well in just one color against any sort of backdrop. So now it can really be put to work, be challenged in an age in which you can very easily find YouTube videos to learn pretty much everything, and you can sign up for online classes for pretty much any sort of discipline. This is the evolution of the logo, a third iteration that we were really happy to be able to tackle, and we're really happy to be helping future generations of students through San Diego Global Knowledge University.